Welcome back, boys and girls. Welcome back to Memory Lane. Today we're traveling back to 2018 with the Be Courageous convention. You remember that one? Well, today we'll be covering one of the most disturbing videos Jehovah's Witnesses have ever produced. It is a series titled Future Events That Will Require Courage. Get ready, it's about to get culty.
Well, brothers, the next item on the agenda is what we've been working on for the past 3 months. And Kevin, since this is your first elders meeting with us, maybe we can fill you in on the background.
Thanks, that'll be great.
We noted that some in the congregation were anxious because of unstable world conditions. And we decided to focus on strengthening the friends when shepherding so that they'd be able to face future events with courage.
Yeah, we also wanted to commend them where they're already showing courage, to help them to see that the courage they develop now will help them to display courage in the future.
Irish. How do things go in your group? Maybe you can share an experience that gives an idea of the overall results.
Sure. I think the experience that best illustrates it is Mark O'Brien's. He was facing some serious pressure at work to compromise his neutrality.
Look, Mark, I understand you don't like to get involved in politics. I don't either. But if we don't protest this new bill, our company is gonna get hit with cutbacks and layoffs.
Joel, don't get me wrong. I'm concerned too.
Why do they always act the same? It's so funny to say that considering I literally have a video on it, but that's like talking about the actual people themselves. Even in the acting, which by the way, in case you didn't know, Jehovah's Witnesses have, so the Watchtower Tract Society, whatever you want to call it, has always used and had no problem with using worldly people in their films. And I swear on my life, it doesn't matter if they're those people or not. They are exactly the same robotically themselves. And it's just so incredibly painful to have to sit and like grit your teeth through to listen to and watch and be like, oh my god. Because I remember even as a kid, I wanted to practically kill myself because of how fucking terrible it is. It is so bad. It makes me want to watch the shit knockoff Bond film Blackbird before I watch any actual Bond films. Just for like eye and ear cleanser because of how horrible that is. But in comparison to this shit, I guarantee it's probably like feels Emmy quality. It's fucking Michael Flatley. I don't understand how you... Oh my god. That is such a weird... Anyway.
But I won't join the protest.
JWs are more than happy to reap the benefits of protests and labor unions, but they're not willing to raise a finger to support the cause because God's kingdom or something.
Okay, so you won't stand in line and protest, but at least sign the sheet to show you support the protest. It's not like you're voting or joining a political party. Your name won't even be noticed. We just need signatures. So far, everyone in the company is signed. Mark, I'm gonna be straight with you. The boss told me he's gonna have to let some people go. And your name is under serious consideration, depending on the outcome of this discussion. Just sign the paper, Mark.
Now you, reasonable member of the audience, might think that a tiny signature is not a big deal, cause it's not. But to an indoctrinated JW, even a tiny concession is equal to backstabbing God himself. The idea that you can't protest against government injustice is nowhere to be found in the Bible. Hell, Jesus protested against the temple elite, right? By overturning tables and kicking out the vendors. Even more hypocritical, Watchtower has protested against the government by taking them to court several times in several countries. And remember that time the governing body told JWs worldwide to write letters to Russia in order to protest the poor treatment of Russian JWs? Was that not a protest? So Watchtower can bend the rules and interact with the government, but then they expect their followers to risk their livelihood over one signature. Talk about a double standard.
Your signature is the death of Jesus. You're literally crucifying Jesus all over again. because he was anti-squiggle. That is, if it's under your own choice and power. If you use your own autonomy as a living individual, living being, to use your fingers to then use a writing implement, whether a pen or a pencil, to squiggle something that we call a name, you're literally trying to kill Jesus a second time.
Did he sign the paper?
No. And you know why? At that moment, he said a silent prayer that gave him the courage needed to remain neutral. Bruh. I commended him, and I reminded him that displaying courage now is going to help him in the future.
Thanks, Luther. That's very encouraging to hear.
I wonder if their angle on this is if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I wonder if that's their narrative, that they're like subtly trying to subvert of like, oh, well, if you give any concessions at all, even the most basic thing that literally doesn't change anything, then they're going to start taking they're going to take so many more, and they're going to force it on you because we're persecuted. Sure.
So did the guy lose his job? Who cares? What matters is that he remained obedient to the organization, because that's what pays the bills, remaining neutral in politics.
Matthew, how did things go with your group?
Very good. In fact, Sally's experience is one that stands out for me.
Oh, this one's bad.
Hi. Would you like to make a donation to the marathon? No thank you.
You know how often that happens? Even as a petty of a fucking country as the United States, as arrogant and entitled as people are here, as judgmental as they are to complete strangers, to where they completely form a full fucking hyper-detailed image of exactly who that person is, what they believe, how they feel, how they stand, how they represent. That's just like the cliche of the average person in the US. The one thing I've never experienced is that, where you're like, no, I don't want to donate to childhood cancer research. I don't want to donate to this or whatever. I never donate to those things. And in fact, arguably, I feel like the way that they do that, those kind of donation things, is kind of grifty. And that's one of the reasons why I hate it, because it's like, there's a sleaziness to it, in my opinion. That's the kind of energy I get off of it. It feels actually almost identical to how the Jehovah's Witnesses ask for donations. Nobody bats an eye at it. Nobody cares. Which is ironic, given what I just noted. But that's my point with this. Is like this, they're like, oh, this happens all the time. You get so harshly judged, and people start to look down upon you because you're a horrible person because you didn't donate to a cause that might compromise your apparent spirituality. Okay. In this case, obviously, this is supposed to be India. So there's a chance maybe that happens in India, but I really doubt it. I don't think in India pride's as supportive of a thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure, just like in Islam, I'm pretty sure Hinduism is actually arguably more physically harsh to gays. But I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember hearing a lot of iffiness in that, especially considering how Hindu nationalist is getting over there, so.
You refuse to donate. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I've been training for it, but I don't know. I hope I'm getting close. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so. No, we can put next week. Oh, I think so.
Yeah. Those are pride bracelets. Yeah, there we go.
I love how vague this sign is. Rainbow bracelet, two women holding hands, like, what is this promoting exactly?
Shall I put it in the bag, or do you want to wear it now? No, thank you.
What's wrong, honey?
Stupid.
You got something against them?
It literally does not happen at all.
Well, no, I don't have anything against him personally.
So what's the problem?
You gotta be fucking.
I respect that they have a right to choose their lifestyle,
But as a Bible reader,
Excuse me. I'm a Bible reader too. I go to church, and our church is one of the biggest supporters for this marathon. So what are you trying to say?
That doesn't happen at all.
The persecution complex goes crazy. This scene is so over the top, with the flash of lights and the echoing voice. This is how the sheltered writers of Bethel imagine worldly people act, as intolerant bigots who can't take no for an answer. But this is exactly how religious people act. It's projection. In real life, if the JW lady turned down the bracelet, the cashier would have just shrugged it off. Hell, most JWs would have just taken the bracelet and put it in their bag, instead of causing a whole scene.
What are you trying to say?
Displaying courage now will help me display courage in the future. Well, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and we believe the Bible teaches sex is for a man and a woman who are married.
Yeah.
Intolerant people.
She didn't even try to argue against the point. Intolerant is selling it short.
Wow. That sure took courage.
That's what I told her.
Wow, that sure took courage. Oh god, oh god, oh god.
When the political powers destroy false religion. At that time, people won't want to admit that they're religious. And so for us,
here we go. Here's
to admit that we're
the
Jehovah's
bunker
Witnesses
aspect
then,
part of it.
well, that's going to require the same type of courage as she displayed at that market.
Wow.
Yep, because being homophobic now will help you remain faithful once the United Nations destroy all organized religion. Don't be afraid to show the world that you are a proud member of a Doomsday cult and that there's no room in paradise for the rainbow people.
Do you recall, a little over 10 years ago, we had the Kingdom News campaign, "The End of False Religion is Near."
Crazy how positive experiences are so rare. This dude had to reach back 10 years ago to find something worth telling. Alright, Gramps, hit us with your best.
During our shepherding visit with Sherry Spencer, she admitted that something happened to her during that campaign.
As a public service, I'm sharing in an earthwide distribution of this important message. That's your free copy.
Hey! What's this about? Are you trying to tell me that my religion...
This is feeling very Shiloh scene-esque, right? You have the dramatic shot where they're walking away, and you have it kind of off to their side, so you just see the guy in the background, and you have the dog who's anxiously wagging his tail and whimpering once he shows some angst. And he's out in the fucking boondocks, apparently. That seems like the idea that they're trying to do. Is he must be like, either he's a rural dude, a sovereign citizen, or a southerner. And so they're picking on a certain cliche here, because look at this. Oh, you're out in the middle of the trees. You probably might have maybe one neighbor at a distance. And look at the firewood. And it's a self-sufficient person out there. Must be extremely bigoted, which is the most ironic, hypocritical thing ever. But alright. Like, you can see what they're going for, but it just feels very Judd. Like, oh, here. Judd's just abused the fuck out of Shiloh. Now we're gonna go approach him with a fucking shotgun and be like, hey! How dare you beat a dog up? He's a cute puppy hound beagle pup dog. You don't fucking do that. Where's the Budweiser can? It's all this is a Coors or a Budweiser. You can tell what they're fucking doing. This is 100% taking from that and being like, yeah, that's these people that live out here. Even though they're kind of bunker dwellers in their own heads in the governing body. They're like, everything's a bunker. We're gonna have to live in bunkers soon. Because the end of the world, everyone's throwing their religion, their Bibles, and the fucking monetary system, and the government's out in the streets. And right, okay. And then you're gonna go back to bunker living, apparently. Like it's the nuclear holocaust. Alright, cool. But no, it's these self-sufficient people out in the middle of the boondocks that are the problem. Okay.
What's this about?
Are you trying to tell me that my religion is false and yours is true? Get off my property! If you come back again, I'm gonna set my dog on you! Nobody wants you here!
Literally, I literally paused it before it gets to even the most Judd scene in Shiloh. They literally probably looked at Shiloh and thought, let's copy a Judd scene where he's really angry, because they approached him about Shiloh abuse.
This was the track they were distributing back then. I mean, just take a look. The end of false religion is near. How is this not offensive? Imagine some strangers go knock on your door just to tell you your religion is about to be destroyed.
Every single religion does do that, though, at least when it comes down to Christianity. It seems like almost every sect does that, at least to an extent. Because, and all the big three, actually, so Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they all think each other and each other's sects are the false religions, and they're the only ones who have the one true God and the one true interpretation of their biblical texts, or whatever their equivalency is, a Tanakh or Quran, or what is the other thing? I always forget somehow. It's not technically the Tanakh, because I think the Tanakh in Judaism is the first 5 books of the Bible. Torah. They all are like, oh, you're the false religion.
I would be kind of pissed off, honestly. But of course, JWs love to make themselves the victims, even though much of the time the persecution they endure is kind of their own making. Also, this track did not age well at all. It was 15 years ago. So much for false religion being destroyed.
Soon. Sister Spencer said that experience stayed with her. To this day, she finds it very difficult to be in the ministry.
Well, duh.
Brothers, I feel like after all these years, if I can't get over this fear, I may not make it when times get harder.
What a crappy way to live, man.
Sister Spencer, you may be surprised to know that most of us get nervous when talking at the doors. I know that I do.
You're just trying to make me feel better.
No, I'm saying it because it's true.
Being courageous doesn't mean we won't get nervous. Sometimes being courageous means taking action even though we are nervous.
Thanks, that is encouraging.
Here's a suggestion that may help. We've discussed Psalm 27 and verse 14. Based on that scripture, the next time you're about to face a situation that calls for courage, whether it be in the ministry or otherwise, tell yourself you just need to do these 3 things. Pray, hope in Jehovah, and act.
Hope your Jehovah insurance covers you against German shepherds and pissed off householders.
You got it? Pray, hope in Jehovah, and act.
That's extremely bizarre that they use the term hope in. In fact, that leaves it really wide open as to like, okay. So in other words, you're saying there's a chance that he won't protect you, or he won't. That's weird. Trust in is a little bit more securing, right? Hope in? That's like saying, it's like, just hope that you don't die tomorrow by getting hit by a freighter. Like, or by the fact you're going swimming with your kids tomorrow, and that you don't accidentally end up getting domed by a fucking log as you try to come up for air and die. Like, what? Why choose hope instead of... That's just weird.
Excellent. Helping the friends address their fears, it's really going to help when our message changes from good news to judgment. So, Peter, let's hear from you next.
Let me let you in on the tea. The reason Jehovah's Witnesses want to preach courageously now is because they will soon have to deliver not a message of good news, but a message of judgment. essentially telling people they're going to be destroyed, with no chance to repent anymore. So it's not enough to knock on strangers' doors every week. No, you also have to mentally prepare for persecution scenarios that are always imminent but never actually arrive. It's super exhausting.
So Peter, let's hear from you next.
Well, when we informed everyone that the publishers were going to be redistributed to the North or South congregation, let's just say some struggled with the idea.
Paula, did you see? They have us going to the South congregation, and everybody else from our group is going to North.
Yeah, I saw that.
This, by the way, I can say with confidence because this happened so often while I was still either in or I left, but I was still directly involved or like secondhand involved because of still being stuck with my dad for a long time. That this happened so frequently that it was literally second nature to everybody. Nobody cared. And in fact, a lot of times the people who got moved into a different congregation would just stay with the original congregation they were with anyway. And like this is a nothing thing. This doesn't actually happen at all. Or people are like, oh, interesting. Let me look at this map. Well, where's my name? Am I assigned to move to a different hall, a different congregation? No, nobody does that. Even in Witnesses, nobody fucking does this. What? That was what makes this weird, is that this is like, this shows they're out of touch with their own religion, their own members. That's fucking weird. Like, oh yeah, this is how you guys work, right? No, they don't. Like, nobody does this. Nobody.
My aunt and cousins will be going there too.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. They should keep you together. Well, at least the brothers said that the list was just a recommendation.
Well, they didn't say it exactly like that. They said if we had extenuating circumstances.
So you don't have to go if you don't want to go.
Obey and comply, boys. Obey and comply. Even with the most insignificant of rules.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
But Kim, if everyone did that, don't you think...
Hi, Sister Taylor.
Oh, hello, girls.
I saw your name on the list for the South congregation, but your grandkids and their families, they're going to North. So what are you going to do?
What do you mean?
Well, are you going to North or are you going to South?
Now, sweetie, didn't you say you saw my name listed under the South congregation?
Yeah, but...
So, I'll be going to the South congregation.
Well, don't you think it would make more sense if you were in the same congregation as your grandkids and their families?
Yes, it makes more sense. But remember, you have to obey the elders' directions, even when they make no sense. Like, I'm serious. I'm quoting verbatim.
Does it make more sense? Well, that's a whole different question.
Then answer it.
The brothers outlined an arrangement. They said they hoped we could support that arrangement, unless we had extenuating circumstances, and I don't have any right now. So, for me, it's simple. Whether I know all of the reasons or not, I'm going to support that arrangement. Oh, look, girls, I've got to go. Oh, and by the way, I hope to see you both in the South congregation.
What the fuck is supposed to be the extenuating circumstances? Like, again, I've asked this before in other videos, because I guarantee they don't. But do they have like a very specifically manicured list that is available if somebody asks for it? I'm like, well, if a member of the congregation asks, what are these acceptable? Because it obviously has to be accepted by the elders and or governing body. What is the acceptable extenuating circumstances? Like, can they hand them a list, or can they tell them? Do they have a reference somewhere? I guarantee they probably don't. And therefore, it's just up to interpretation, I guess, in the moment of like, oh, well, we don't feel that's correct. That doesn't apply as an extenuating circumstance. I'm trying to use like a literal critical life situation where like you might lose a family member, so medical intervention's necessary or something. And so as a result, I guess we can just be very ambiguous ourselves and say they're going into hospice, so end of life care, because they might die and they kind of figure they will soon. You don't want to lose that family member, or at least not spend, you know, a fair amount of time with them. I don't know what these bugs are. It's weird. There's like a mite and like something else and on my lamp, and it's distracting because I'm apparently 4 years old. It's literally, it's Sodom and Gomorrah letting me know that I'm a horrible person because I don't believe in Jehovah's Witnesses. That's got to be what it is. So they're going to hospice care. You want to spend as much time with them as you can. And sure, they're going to still try as much as they are physically able to be transported to and from and actually get to and be present physically and pay attention to meetings. They're going to keep going there. But say they get this separation and now they're listed in this case, let's say the North congregation, but you're staying in the South congregation, despite the fact that that's your family member. Is that an acceptable extenuating circumstance? Or is it not considered that? Because now you got to be courageous and knowing that you got to trust in Jehovah that Armageddon will come soon and you will see them in paradise. And you just got to do your duty and be obedient to the commands of Jehovah God, aka the governing body, aka human beings. Like, is that an acceptable circumstance? Or extenuating circumstance? Probably not. What the fuck is the circumstances? They're probably expecting that none of their members are actually going to ask because they're supposed to be good little obedient foot soldiers, meaning that they're not supposed to think for themselves, meaning they're not supposed to question anything. If they're told that this is correct, especially if it's from Jehovah God himself, well then they're not supposed to question that at all. If they do, they'll get reprimanded. Even if it makes sense to ask when it comes down to something like this, well, what is an acceptable extenuating circumstance? But again, in my experience, it's never been like this. Like, if they assign you to a different congregation, even without extenuating circumstances, they don't care if you stay in the same one. They don't even care if you randomly move to a different congregation, even though you're living in the same fucking address that you have for, say, the last 15 years. You can move to a completely different congregation in a completely different hall, 20 miles further away, and they don't care. Really, all they care about, kind of like a corporation, go figure, is numbers. How many members are there? And how consistently do they go to their meetings? And how devout are they? That's all they really care about, because that goes back to their whole image problem, where they're always obsessed over their image and how they appear to, ironically, the worldly world, the worldly people, which is such a strange thing in the first place, because it doesn't make any sense either. But remember, you can't question it, because that's apparently Jehovah's intentions or will or something.
When this video was released, the Watchtower was dismantling and merging congregations left and right, and JWs were expected to go wherever they were assigned to, even if that meant being separated from their families and friends. You would think that a struggling religion would want to keep members as content as possible, but nope, they were just told to shut up and stop complaining.
I think this experience well illustrates one way to show courage now. And that's by following the direction of the brothers taking the lead, even if we don't fully understand the reasons why this direction has been given.
Exactly.
I'm starting to space out.
We've been told when Gog of Magog attacks Jehovah's people, we may receive direction that may not seem practical. So courageously following directions now will help us to do so then.
Just bring out the Kool-Aid already, dude.
So, brothers, we're almost done. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share what happened with my group. The Monroes asked if I would join them on one of their family worship evenings.
So let's ask our final review question. How can we prepare ourselves for the events that are to come? Sarah?
We want to develop heartfelt obedience to the guidance that we receive.
Just a regular Wednesday night in my childhood. What, you weren't raised with graphic pictures of Armageddon? You missed out, man.
Now, so that we'll obey any future instructions Jehovah may give us. And so doing that.
My brother is scared shitless. Just let him play some Nintendo, man.
Will help us survive Armageddon.
Well said. Very nice there.
May I ask Brad a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
Brad, I notice you've really been focused on that picture. Do you mind if I ask what you're thinking about?
I want to ask how common it is that black families in this country would call their kid Brad. I feel like it's very unlikely. Extremely unlikely. That is a very white name. Like John. Except John's so generic that I wouldn't be surprised if it is like universal now. But like, I don't know, Brad feels a little too white. Just saying.
Well, will the brothers tell us how to fight the people who will be attacking us?
We won't need to do any fighting.
Now what will we need the instructions for? Are we just gonna stand there and do nothing?
Yes, that's the idea.
We don't know what those instructions will be, son.
Brad, when Armageddon comes, we'll have nothing to worry about. And we won't have to fight. We know that because of what Jehovah has done for his people in the past.
You mean order them to fight on his behalf with swords and everything? Sorry, dude, but you seem to have forgotten who you're worshiping here.
I'd like to show you an account. In 2 Chronicles, chapter 20, it was a time when Moabites and Ammonites started the war against the land of Judah, who's been ruled by King Jehoshaphat. Some of those Israelites were likely anxious, just like you. Jehoshaphat gathered Judah at the temple and began to inquire of Jehovah. And Jehovah caused a Levite named Jehaziel to give an answer that gave everyone courage.
Oh my god, yeah. Some of those fake beards
What did he
are
say?
atrocious.
Do not be afraid or be terrified because of this large crowd. For the battle is not yours, but God's. You will not need to fight this battle. Take your position, stand still, and see the salvation of Jehovah in your behalf. Jehovah turned the enemies against each other. By the time the Israelites arrived, not one soldier was left.
JWs love to fantasize on Old Testament tales where Jehovah massacres an entire army to save his people. But they don't realize that with Armageddon, it's not gonna be just a couple thousand soldiers. We're talking about 8 billion unbelievers who are executed in cold blood. How comforting, man.
It was obvious that Brad's courage was strengthened after reviewing this Bible account. And I'm happy to say that after our discussions, the friends in our group are more aware of how their own acts of courage now will help them be courageous in the future. Why am I having such a hard time with this? Of course I'm going to go to the South congregation. There's no reason not to. But the problem is my attitude.
Again, with the attitude policing, didn't you just talk about this like a minute ago?
I've told others for years that there are times when we have to put aside our personal preferences to show our wholehearted support of Jehovah's sovereignty. This is one of those times.
Yeah, because Jehovah commanded you to split your congregation because it got too big, apparently, for your britches. And so now you got to split into a different kingdom hall because also, you know, human urban sprawl happened. And so, you know, that's totally a Jehovah commandment, not just an arbitrary organizational thing, as an organization as an organizing and trying to even out the numbers of people in each hall. I don't know why you would think that.
Be courageous and stand up to selfishness and independent thinking, even if it's my own.
Yeah, stand up to independent thinking, as in, do not be autonomous. Do not be yourself. Be a drone. Be a copy-pasted Truman Show looking motherfucker who preaches the good word. Because that seems like a great God to worship, doesn't it? Like, yeah, you're created in my image. You are my flesh and blood, my children. Yes, absolutely. And thus I gave you all these different feelings, all these different, you know, bodily functions and systems and urges, admittedly, and, you know, oh, I don't know. How about, you know, the ability to critically think for yourself and be an autonomous, independent, unique, individual living being? But let's throw it all on the rug and burn it in some fire really quick and make sure it's bloody, so that way you know how to be fearful of that, because that's a bad thing. That's actually Satan and his demons, not me. Even though it isn't if we just don't think about it, which is the point. Don't think, just do. Because, you know, it's a great God to worship right there.
It's so telling that independent thinking is associated with selfishness. No, man, you absolutely have to be an independent thinker, or else you'll be roped into a doomsday cult.
I was reminded.
Yeah.
It's simple. When Jehovah's organization outlines an arrangement, we support it. Not just because we're supposed to. We do it with the right attitude.
Yeah.
Amen to that. That's a lesson we're all learning.
But I'm glad we're able to shepherd the congregation before the changes take place. Now our brothers and sisters are better equipped to face the challenges ahead with courage. It's been a real pleasure to serve with you all. Peter, would you please conclude our meeting with...
This was way cultier than I remember. Holy cow. Doomsday paranoia, calls for obedience, blatant homophobia, persecution porn. This convention had it all. But this is the reality of life as a JW. I really used to believe that I would see the Great Tribulation and the Battle of Armageddon in my lifetime. I strived to obey the organization because that was the only way to be saved, and I lived in constant fear that I wasn't gonna make it through the tribulation because of my personal shortcomings. It's not...
You know what's funny about that is, again, the whole faithful and discreet slave, because I know Jehovah's Witnesses will always argue, no, that's not what it means. It literally is. That's why it's used in the exact ways that the governing body has it set up to be used in the Watchtower and the, originally, when they had them, still, the Awakes, and the texts, and the... Oh, Jesus Christ. Like, it's rampant, and it's very clear. I, as a child, could figure that out immediately, that this is what they were really saying, is that the faithful and discreet slave, you are that, aka you are that to quote-unquote Jehovah. No, actually, to the governing body, that's who you are, to the rules, the doctrines. You are the slave to your own religion. And even if it was to your God fully, why would you want to enslave yourself voluntarily, like involuntary enslavement to your deity? It just doesn't make any sense. That's one of the weirdest, most fucked up things in the world.
A good way to live, believe me. At the end of this convention, they also released this music video, which we already covered previously. But pretty much all the characters in this drama survive the Great Tribulation when Jehovah jumps in last minute and destroys the army. You just can't make this up.
Why is he an archer that shoots a single arrow and kills off apparently a SWAT team? Or SRU? That's a bit weird. This was very underwhelming for me. I didn't really expect... I expected way more than that. And I guess that was my mistake, because I shouldn't have had expectations. Because it was like, that's really mild. I mean, that's basically nothingness compared to what I've heard and experienced and seen before. But I'm kind of sad that they don't do actual dramas anymore. They have them all pre-produced and recorded. And I hate that. I wish they still did live action dramas where they have the scripts that they could turn into a film, but instead of doing a film, they actually do live stage play acting, like Broadway type stuff, but Jehovah's Witnesses edition. I wish they still did that. Just like I wish they didn't, like, I wish they still used their physical fucking, you know, reading, their actual physical Bibles and their physical watchtowers, awakes, texts, so on and so forth, rather than using the tablets and the phones and their app and website and everything all the time. I wish it wasn't so digital. I wish it wasn't so modernized. I wish they would still have some of that isn't so Mormon, admittedly, because all that's extremely Mormonistic. I know Mormonistic isn't an actual true term, but I will always use Mormonistic to mean something's very Mormon. Which, again, my mom predicted, like, right on the fucking nose. Right on the dot of exactly when they'd start adopting these other very Mormon-like things, very Mormonistic things. Like the TVs in every Kingdom Hall, and then the JW.org, and the app, and digitizing everything so that no longer would you actually have any of that, and actually promoting using digital devices instead of physical copies. Like, she predicted every last bit of that, and she nailed it in the timing perfectly every single time. Why? Because she was, well, even while J-Dub, she talked with and read the Book of Mormon. She talked with the Mormons a lot, and she was kind of in tune with that stuff. So she knew. She knew, and she already had seen how they had already adopted a lot of other things that were priorly Mormon, that they're like, absolutely, we would, you know, she suggested, like, they'll never do that. Absolutely not. No. It's absolutely never going to happen. And then, of course, it happens literally in the exact timeline she says. And then it just kept going, and it's never stopped. And I find that to be quite funny and ironic. Okay, now I'm going to actually shut up. Bye-bye.